If you haven't been following me, I recently moved from the city in a small apartment to a house that's maybe twice as large as my apartment, and then also has a backyard, which is really nice because I can start to grow some plants outside. I have had to work creatively because the yard is so small. I transformed my garage into a greenhouse, which kept a lot of my humidity-loving plants happy for the summer. But now that it's winter, it's gonna be fairly cold inside that greenhouse garage, so I'm moving my plants into my basement. I started by hanging up my GE grow lights because you can't have plants without light in a dark basement. The thing I love about these GE grow lights is that they really do their job, especially for seeds and seedlings. I bought a bunch of these GE grow lights and decided I'd hang them over 5-foot wire mesh shelves that will eventually hold all of my plants and my propagation boxes. Hopefully it'll keep things much more organized than they are currently. With the lights up, I put together my wire mesh shelving. I think I fit 4 into the basement in total. And then it was time to start bringing in the plants. I started by bringing in seedlings and the most temperature sensitive plants first. So plants that need between 60 and 80 degrees or they might die. I brought in most of my houseplants but left some plants outside so that they could harden up a little bit with cool temperatures in the 40s. Once I got most of the plants down into the basement, I had to make sure they were settling in. So my first order of business was to buy a humidity sensor and temperature thermometer to make sure that the basement could sustain plants that needed a lot of humidity. I then decided I should try to organize my plants by seedlings on one end and then move my way over to full-grown plants on the other so that I know what I have and at what stages that they're in. I have a lot of seedlings currently, probably way more than I can actually handle right now, but I am excited to see them grow, and especially now that they're all together in the same area, I can kind of see their progress and make any changes if I need to in terms of light or adding more water if they dry out on the inside of the cup. I couldn't do this before because most of my seedling cups were spread out in various different places and it was hard to keep track. I'm also keeping a bunch of seedlings in the same area for the very same reason, just so I can watch their progress and see when I need to move them to a bigger shelf. And here we have my first flowering begonia, which I'm very excited about. I'm very surprised that it's decided to flower since it's such a young plant, but I'll take it. Speaking of flowers, if you remember from earlier in the year, I did a how to plant African violets from seed. Got my first African violet blooming. Can't make up this gorgeous purple color. I am happy with how my basement greenhouse turned out. There are, however, a couple of things that I still need to address. The first being that I need to come up with a better organization system because I'm currently struggling to find what I need when I need it, and there's lots of boxes and I can't fully see inside of these boxes with all of the perspiration on the side. Take, for example, this rescue prop box, which has my begonia nigrosensis cuttings and a few odds and ends from other plants that I'm trying to regrow. You can see that the nigrosensis leaves are a little holey and crispy, which isn't great. I also have a ficus villosa that was getting a little moldy and stale, so I moved him here. I definitely spotted some mold on my begonias and a couple of other plants and needed to treat them. But other plants seem to be doing super well, like the Sonaria. They may even be getting too much light, so I need to address that. In here we have some Monolina primifolia, which has these really gorgeous red leaves. when they are growing, and these guys are going out of control, so I'm just gonna leave them in here for now. And I have a ton of new caudiciform plant seedlings that I need to pot up. I can't even name them all here, but if you're interested, let me know in the comments. And I have more desert plants that I absolutely need to relocate because they are next to a drafty window, which is my next project and next issue with the basement, is that it's so old and these windows do have cracks in the sides of them, so I'm going to need to find a way to seal them off very soon. I'm still kind of figuring out how much light some of these plants need. It's very frustrating because a lot of them are getting shocked by the LEDs. In here I have Gloxinella lindiani, I believe is how you say it, and they are starting to adjust to the new conditions, but they're showing a little bit of light stress, I guess I would call it, and also just temperature stress. They're very used to the warmer conditions of the greenhouse, and with the new temperatures below 70, it seems like they are going to be just fine, but I need to give them a little bit more time to adjust. Also keeping a bunch of my quote-unquote houseplants who appreciate a bit more humidity than your average houseplant, and especially with my heater running most of the time this winter, I figured the basement would be a better option because the humidity is roughly at 60% most of the time. Here is a Dioscorea seedling. I think I only have 2 left since I originally potted them, so I'm going to get some seeds and try again soon. The garage greenhouse, as of now, will become a place where I am starting to grow landscaping plants, so that means peonies, anemones, maples, redbuds, that sort of thing. I'm also planning to move my cacti and succulents to my attic because heat rises, and it's likely it'll be hot and dry up there, and they'll probably prefer that than a cool, dark basement. That, I hope, will solve some of my space issues. But then again, I have a ton of plants to repot, especially a ton of Syningia, which you see here, and in here, and I still have more seedlings to go through, but I'm secretly super excited to see how they grow.